welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are just going to be making a very quick, simple little gift treat box. This one is geared toward teachers and teacher appreciation, since that is right around the corner. At least for my kids, this next week is teacher appreciation, so I wanted to make them just a little treat box. What I have here is some Paper Studio 65-pound cardstock. It measures 5.5 by 6.5. That's just some lightweight cardstock there. Then I have some pattern paper. This is from Paper Studio. It is their watercolor patterns. And I just picked some scraps that were in the pad and cut those down to 1 7/8 by 2 7/8. I picked one that really didn't have a direction, but if you did have a pattern paper that had a direction, you would want to make sure you cut it in portrait mode. This is listed for $21.99, but I always wait when their paper pads go half to 40% off, because I'm just not willing to pay that amount of money for paper. So I also have a Stitch Sentiment Label die, banner die. I honestly don't know where I got this, y'all, but I just chose one that I thought would work, and I picked some of my Simon Says Stamp inks. These are not their positively saturated, these are just their regular ones that I felt matched the paper really well. I have one product here from Stampin' Up. They have a whole bunch of punches, and their punches are fantastic, but I purchased this one forevers ago, and that's the only thing that I have that is Stampin' Up in my entire collection. So this is just going to put a kind of a decorative topper on there. This is from Waffel Flower Crafts, the stamp set, and it is just called Teacher. It does have coordinating dies that will cut out those big, that scripty teacher and that block teacher, but I will not be using those today. I'm just using one of the sentiments and putting it on that banner. So the first things first, on the long side, we're going to take our scoring tool and we are going to score at 3 and 4. This is on your long side, so your 6.5-inch side. We're going to score at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Then we're going to rotate it a quarter of a turn to where that short little strip is at the bottom. We're going to score it at 1 and 4, and then we're going to do some partial scoring. So just on these larger sections here, we're going to score at 4.5. So just on those larger sections, you don't want to score all the way through, although you could in reality, just because the tabs, you do have to reduce those in size, and you can reduce those to that 4.5 if you wanted to. So if you look there, we just have partial scores. We're going to do that one more time, just so that you can see it one more time. So again, on our 6.5-inch side, we're going to score at 3 and 4, and we're going to score at 5 and 6. We're going to turn our paper a quarter of a turn, and we're going to score at 1 and 4, and then we're going to do partial scores at 4.5 on the big flap and 4.5 again. It's not hard to find kind of where they line up. So as you can see, we have just partial scores on those larger rectangles. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fold and burnish all of the score lines that go all the way through the paper. All that is taking a bone folder and helping kind of crease and sharpen up those score marks that we made. If you don't have a scoring tool, first off, I would highly recommend you get one, just because they are so versatile and you can make so very many things with them, and add, interest and definition and dimension and texture to various things just using a scoring tool. But you can always use a ruler and a straight edge, ruler and a scoring tool if you don't have one. What I'm doing here is on the ones that are the shorter flaps, I'm cutting up straight up those, and I'm cutting off that little rectangle on the side. And these smaller little rectangles, I'm just going to wedge a little triangle out of each of those. I'm going to keep the larger rectangles straight. I'm not going to cut into those at all. Essentially what I'm trying to do is remove the score mark. These smaller rectangles are going to fold into the box. And so anytime you have something that's folding into your 3D project, you kind of want to miter or cut a little wedge into those, just because it helps the box go together a bit neater and more professional looking. So now I've flipped up the cardstock, and then once again I'm just cutting straight down all of these score marks, stopping at that for the most part at that second score mark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these larger ones that have that partial score mark through them. I'm going to move those out of the way, and I'm going to reduce in size these tabs here. Now, like I said, you could go ahead and score all the way through at 4.5 and just have little 1/2 inch tabs that fold into your box. I just chose to eyeball it. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the bottom ones. I'm just going to do a small miter cut, nothing crazy, nothing drastic, just enough to kind of get rid of that score mark. Whenever you score into paper, it kind of leaves like a bubble on one side, and I'm just trying to get rid of that little bubble or that crease. So this is what it looks like when it's all done. And then you're going to end up folding backward on these partial scores on these larger rectangles. And those larger rectangles are where you're actually going to be doing your punching with your decorative label punch. If you have like border dies, you could absolutely do this with a border die. If you have like those scissors that have like decorative edges, you could definitely do that. You could just simply round the corners if you chose to. So this is that Stampin' Up label punch. Like I said, they have several of them on the market. They are kind of, in my mind, they're kind of an investment. So that's why I only have one. But they have some really, really pretty ones. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the flap that has the partial score, and I'm going to flip this punch over and try to make sure that that is centered. You are going to have to kind of nestle those tabs under the punch just to get it in there all the way. But then I just go ahead and flip it over and I punch it. We're going to repeat that on the opposite side. You can fold all those tabs out of the way. It's not necessary, but if it helps you, then by all means do that. So again, I'm just going to kind of wedge that under there. It isn't going to harm your punch at all. It's not going to harm your project at all to do this. If it did, I wouldn't do it. So again, I'm just making sure that it's centered, and then I'm going to punch it. I like to do this from the back just so I can indeed make sure that everything is centered. And then that is what it all looks like when it is punched and cut and scored and burnished. You only need a little bit of glue for this project. You could use a dry adhesive for this part if you so choose. Because I was making about 14 of these, I just went with wet glue, just because it was more economic, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to take, this is reptile glue. I'm going to take this glue and run just a small bead along the edge. I'm going to fold that on the second score mark from the left and then the first score mark from the right, and they should line up just perfect. If they don't, because if you used liquid glue, you have just a little bit of wiggle room to try to get those to be centered and lined up. You can just line up your score marks that are horizontal right now, and you should be good to go. The next thing I'm going to do is fold in the 2 tabs at the bottom and then the back, and then I'm going to put some glue on the front tab. This will help you get a more professional finish where you're not seeing seams and ends of cardstock and that kind of thing. I then take my fingers and just kind of square everything up, and then I'm using my bone folder here to help kind of push everything down. But as I went along, I had a little glue bottle that would fit in the bottom of this that would fit in this little box. And I just laid that in there while I worked on the next one. Because this is a mass producing product, or a mass producing project, I did all of the same step at one time. So this is just showing you kind of what this is going to look like when this is done. This project is inspired by, oh goodness, her name just escaped my mind. She's the Paper Pixie here on YouTube. Oh my goodness, I can't think of her name right now. I apologize, but she is the Paper Pixie here on YouTube. She is a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US. So this project is one of hers, because I am not this creative, folks. I'm just not. This is one of her projects from about a year ago. She did it for Halloween, and I'm adapting it for teacher appreciation. So the next thing I'm doing is I chose to go ahead and matte both the front and the back of this, but you absolutely don't have to. If you wanted to, you could even put like a sentiment on the back and not label and not matte it with pretty cardstock, or you could go ahead and matte it with pretty cardstock, but write a message, a personal message on the back if you chose to, or even put the teacher's name, or I'm not sure if a gift card would fit. I don't think so. But I don't think it'd be a bad overhang. So if you wanted to just kind of temporarily adhere a gift card to the back of this, you could, but there would probably be just a little bit of overhang. So I'm just going to go ahead and matte both sides. And here I'm trying to figure out, does it bother me that this banner kind of overhangs on both sides? And it doesn't bother me enough that I'm going to cut this down. So I'm going to end up putting my sentiment on those little banners. Here I have all of the boxes assembled, and I have all of the pattern paper on the backs, the front and back. Here I am using my awesome little mini ink cube holder that I got from Simon. I did a recent haul video over this, but that haul video will be posted later. So there is a haul video coming with this particular piece in there. I purchased a stamping ink pad carousel from Stampin' Storage, and I was putting all of my positively saturated inks in there, and then I realized that I have regular Simon ink, so that became my little carousel for all of those. And as I was going through, I was like, man, these colors are beautiful. I kind of forgot how pretty those regular Simon ink colors are. I just get distracted with the new ones. And so I decided I was going to use all Simon Says Stamp inks today. So I have Hollyhock, orange peel, I think it was Sunshine, Fern, Sky Blue, and Hot Mama. And I just chose those colors based on the colors in the pattern paper. And I chose the sentiment from that teacher stamp set from Waffel Flower. And I went with the one that said, "Thank you for helping me grow." I thought that was appropriate for teachers and the end of the year. And so all I'm going to do is go through and stamp that. I'm looking at each particular box to see what color I want to bring out or what color is predominant. And then I'm just stamping the sentiment color based on that. I am using that stamping block from Hero Arts that was also in that, that'll also be seen in that haul video, and just stamping my sentiment down, and then between colors I clean it off with that block. All I did was spray some stamp cleaner onto that block, and then I just clean it off. Some of these inks I did have to stamp multiple times, either because I wanted a darker color or because I felt like I didn't get a good impression. Maybe the ink pad is dry. So now I have all of these stamped, and I'm just going to apply just a little bit of glue to the very middle. Again, you could use a dry adhesive here if you so choose, but I needed the extra wiggle room. So I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive in the very center, and then My son filled all of these for me, and I'm going to take a piece of string, a piece of ribbon that's about 7 inches long, and I'm going to loop it together, and then I'm going to stick the looped end through the hole on this punch, and then I'm just going to kind of wiggle it through to tighten that up, and then trim off my excess. This ribbon is from Hobby Lobby, and it is just a black ribbon. There's no wire or anything in there. And then those are complete. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you feel inspired and you get the chance to tell some teachers how much you appreciate them this year. Until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.